in Laurel, Maryland. Chris, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Thanks for taking my question. Yes, will this new board have subpoena power and any type of enforcement power, or is it basically a fact-finding body like an IG that, turns its findings over to some other enforcement agency? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks for your question,
Great
Chris.
question.
A very good question. We actually do have complete subpoena authority. We have deposition authority. And we can subpoena not only documents, but testimony as well. In fact, I had a conversation with the Attorney General, Irv Nathan, not too long ago. We actually have much broader subpoena power than he has in conducting our investigations. Moreover, while we certainly have and are required to do referrals for criminal prosecution because we don't have criminal authority, we are the civil enforcement authority. So we will impose civil penalties, fines, censure, recommended removal from office if that's necessary, or we find that it's appropriate. And then we have the enforcement ability to go into Superior Court of the District of Columbia and enforce those fines, enforce those provisions. We don't need to go anywhere else.
Since we're talking about ethics here, some concerns have been raised about a possible conflict of interest on your part. The WashingtonPost.com, quoting from your firm's website, saying that you regularly advise individuals and businesses on how to navigate a variety of legal issues through the District of Columbia government. You negotiate on their behalf with the District of Columbia agencies and officials. How will that be dealt with? Is there an ethics law already on the books that can deal with that? As the Post seems to suggest, there's a federal statute that makes it a crime for a district official to represent a private party in a dispute with the D.C. government. But since you are not a full-time employee, how will that apparent conflict be resolved in your case?
That's right. And these issues all got thrashed out fairly extensively during the confirmation process. But we are special government employees, which means that we're part-time folks, and we are expected to go on with our regular lives and our regular businesses and can continue to have contact and deal with the District of Columbia in a professional capacity as long as we follow the rules and regulations that are in place. And so, for example, for me, because I'm an attorney with a law firm here in town, and we do some cases, not very many cases, and it's fewer than maybe 2% of our total, our casework, come in contact with the District of Columbia. To the extent that any of those matters would touch on ethics issues or potential ethics issues, I obviously would have to recuse myself from participation in those matters. And it's perfectly appropriate, and the Attorney General has weighed in on this, and other folks have weighed on this as well. It's perfectly appropriate for me to do so. I think that the chance of actually having a conflict is very, very, very low, given the nature of what we do, and when that would intersect with a potential ethics problem in the district. I mean, if we represent somebody in a civil lawsuit that involves the District of Columbia government, it is highly unlikely that would trigger a conflict with an ethics issue. But I would personally recuse myself from dealing with a matter when I'm having a professional relationship with a district government employee at the same time.
One smaller issue, because I mentioned the name Dorothy Brazil before for our listeners who may not know who that is. She runs an independent news website called DC Watch and is known as a government watchdog. She noted that prior to this past week's meeting, people trying to contact the board by phone were directed to your firm's telephone number, and she suggested that that was improper.
Well, it's not improper. It's certainly improper to use government resources for private gain, but we are part-time employees, and as of when the meeting notice went out, we still don't have a government phone number, and it would be unfair to the members of the general public to send out a notice for a meeting and say, when you have questions, there's nobody to contact. And so we thought it better, and it's perfectly appropriate to do so, to have them contact me as the chair of the board, because we're the only staff that we have so far.